Thank you very much, Yuri. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Well, Yuri says the best universities of Europe. I immediately will start with nuancing that. We have 21 good universities, but there are certainly a lot of other good universities in Europe in our group. The League of European Research Universities, you see there on the slide. I will try to add a little bit what the two previous speakers already said this afternoon, two very good presentations, and I would like to take a very practical bottom-up approach towards the issue of excellence, excellent research. I'm not going to spend a lot of theory on that. I just would like to focus this afternoon in my talk on how we try to stimulate the conditions, the circumstances in which good, excellent research can be done and what is necessary for that, and how the 21 universities that I represent, how we try to contribute to that, and how we try that primarily at the European level. We as a group, we don't function that much at the national level, presently more than we did in the past, because obviously the interaction primarily from a financial point of view between the member states and the union is growing even on a daily basis, and so that also has brought us a bit more in the national field over the past 2 years. I come back to that later on, but we focus primarily at the European level, at the policy developments which we see from DG Research and Innovation, DG EAC, Education and Culture, the European Research Council, the EIT, the GRC, and things like that. So this is the playground in which we try to act. LERU is a group of 21 European research intensive universities, as you see on the slide. We are a non-profit organization created in 2002 with our seat at Leuven University in Belgium, and we are committed, of course, to the values of high quality teaching within an environment of internationally competitive research. And I want to emphasize immediately already this link between research and education. I come back to the presentation by Gunnar already earlier this afternoon. Is it possible to combine high-level teaching and high-level research? Well, I just want to refer to my own university, the University of Leuven, where we have now about 45,000 students under our umbrella on the site in Leuven alone, and where we are nonetheless, if you look at the ERC ranking nowadays, where we are still number 6 or number 7. But of course, as Gunnar indicated, it has demanded a lot from our university, from our staff, and the policy that we have been developing to make this reconciliation of being a very good research-intensive university, and at the same time, because of the Flemish policy with regard to education, where education is open for everybody for €500 tuition fee a year, at the same time develop a very good educational portfolio. We have 21 members. We are a closed group. Here you see on the slide, I come back to the map in a minute, here you see the members of our group. And for those of you which are in the public and would like to become a member of LERU, I will have to disappoint you immediately, because we don't work in a sense that you just give me a ring and you say, where do we have to pay the membership fee and when can we participate in the meetings? We don't work like that. We are a closed group and we select the members of our group ourselves. Even before the concerned university knows that, we already have been looking into the performance of that specific university and have made our own internal evaluation. And once we are convinced that the university is matching with the approach and the policies that we have taken in the past and which we are pursuing for the future, that we then invite a specific university. And in order to avoid that I get all kinds of solicitations after this talk, the box is closed at least, I think, for another 2 years or something like that. The present group of universities is not so keen of enlarging the group in the sense that we are small, effective and efficient, and we want to keep it like that. And so this is also at the same time our strength. The universities that you see here on the map are spread over 9 EU countries. We have two universities in a non-EU country. It's Geneva and Zurich in Switzerland. You see that we are absolutely not aiming at a kind of geographical representation throughout the EU 28. That's absolutely not our purpose. We have selected in the past a number of universities primarily on the basis of their research performance, but not only on the basis of the research performance. I would say that the research performance is the very first important step. For that we have developed a kind of bibliometric model in which we put all kinds of indicators dealing with publications, citations, research funding, grants, ERC grants and things like that. But this is just the raw material that we need to make a first evaluation. After that we also look at things which have been mentioned also this afternoon. We look at governance. Are the persons in charge, are they managers or are they academics? Are they people coming from the private sector, from university themselves? We look at the comprehensiveness of the university. You will see in a minute that for us comprehensiveness is not unimportant. Obviously there are great, excellent universities, but which are of course only encompassing, I would say, 2 or 3 faculties. Take London School of Economics, for example. They are an absolutely great, fantastic institution, but of course they are not a comprehensive university, far from. And so these are a number of the elements that we take into account into the selection of the universities. And I would like to say also from the beginning that one of the mottos that we use within LERU is that we are supporting excellence in diversity. We all have to be serious when it comes down to identifying research-intensive universities. It cannot be the purpose that in Europe we try to aim at having, within the 4,000 universities that we have in the broader Europe, it cannot be the purpose that we say we are aiming at 4,000 research-intensive universities. This is something which is absolutely impossible. We don't have the amount of people, we don't have the amount of money to do something like that. And so that means that universities should not all strive to be a top research-intensive university, because if we all do that, at the end of the day, we are all going to lose at the same time. So that's why it is important that we are promoting this idea of excellence in diversity. There is nothing wrong with being a very good teaching university, if we can call it like that. There is nothing wrong with being an excellent regional embedded university supporting the regional development. There is nothing wrong with being an excellent international oriented university and things like that. So just to be clear, excellence in diversity is a very important element. So these are the group of universities which are coming together and which aim at developing a number of commitments which we are pursuing on a daily basis. You see here, encourage education through an awareness of the frontiers of human understanding, foster the creation of knowledge through basic research as the ultimate source of innovation in society, and promote research across a broad front which creates a unique capacity to respond to new opportunities and problems. And I would like to stop with the second bullet point there, because for us this is very important. The League was created in 2002 because a number of rectors in Europe thought that we were lacking a kind of defender, a kind of promoter of what I would call frontier research at European level. I will come back later on to what is happening in a number of other parts of the world. Some of our rectors at that time, in the year 2000, they all came back from the 100th anniversary of the Association of American Universities, our US sister organization, and then they clearly saw over there what can be the difference which is made by an organization which is in fact pushing on a daily basis the US federal government in order to foster, in order to promote frontier research. And we prefer in fact to use the notion of frontier research because it indicates the kind of research that we would like to pursue, namely the research which is really making a difference at the end of the day, which is changing the frontiers, which is changing the paradigms with which we are working on a daily basis. So earlier this afternoon there was already a mentioning of applied and fundamental research. Well, this distinction, of course, has been around for a very long time, but if we talk about that, I always refer to what the Vice-Chancellor of Cambridge is always saying. He always makes a distinction between applied and not yet applied research. So it's a question of going for that fundamental frontier research, and obviously as a consequence of that, the whole machinery of applied research, of innovation, knowledge transfer, etc. also must be made. We try to promote this research, this kind of research, across a broad front, and here I make the link again with what I already mentioned, namely we try to have members in our group which are primarily comprehensive universities. We have a number of exceptions to that, depending on how comprehensive you talk. Obviously, universities which are offering all the degrees in their own country, well, there are not that many. If I look at my own university, Leuven in Belgium, we offer all degrees that the government allows us to award, with one exception, veterinarian studies, for example. If you look at our group, you have Imperial College London, which is not a full comprehensive university. So, but we aim at universities which allow us to make cross-disciplinary research to an as large as possible extent. Not only science, not only medicine, but also social science and humanities, because nowadays this cross-disciplinary approach is really important, I would say, also to come up with this good, excellent research that we are aiming at. So here you see in a nutshell what we try to do. We try to influence at EU level those circumstances which should lead to excellent research. We also nowadays try to do that at member state level. We don't only aim at excellent research, we also aim at excellent best practices within the group. And you will see later on that excellent research is one thing, but creating the best circumstances in which good research is done and make it possible for the different members to learn from each other is a very important goal for us. You will see later on that we have developed best practices with regard to research careers, doctoral training, technology transfer, open access and things like that, where we share the practices which we have developed within our 21 universities, and where we try to come up then with a kind of summary how we best have to move on for the future. It's not because we are only 21 universities in the group that what we do would not be important for all kinds of other research-intensive institutions out there in Europe or in the world. So we believe that, and we see that in daily practice, I must say, that a lot of institutions follow the examples of what we have been putting forward, and not only within the European scene we see that, but we also see that at a global level. Obviously those best practices which we develop in order to promote the circumstances under which excellent research can take place, you will find most of them in a number of papers that we have been publishing, and I will go back to them in a minute. Let me first give you a few facts and figures on our group. Here you see the amount of students and PhD students that we try to take care of on a daily basis, amount of degrees granted on a year. Perhaps for today, most important is what you see at the bottom of the slide. So, for example, we have in our group of 21 universities, we have more than 20%, I think it's nowadays 23% of all the ERC grants awarded by the ERC over the past 6 years now are in our group of 21 universities. And as you will have seen on one of the previous slides, some of the institutions about which we are talking are, as I already said, at the same time big teaching institutions, but at the same time big research institutions. And this is very nicely illustrated by this ERC percentages, because in most of our members, also through these best practices, we have clearly developed a kind of nurturing policies for our young promising researchers on how to be successful in applying for ERC grants. And so it's really important that you create the right guidance, the right environment in order to make sure that the people that you have on board, that they are successful. Let me perhaps first switch to the end of the presentation, where you see a number of papers that we have been developing over the past years, where we have been bringing together the best practices which must make sure that, or which must stimulate at least, that we create an environment where we have good people, good research infrastructure, good research environment, a good possibility for a research career. You see, for example, one of the papers that we did last year was on gender, which was already mentioned by Thierry earlier this afternoon. It's of course a waste of talent if we see how a number of institutions in Europe, but also worldwide, are still making differences in their HR strategy with regard to male and female collaborators. So the European Union is always saying we need an additional 1 million researchers by 2020. And very often then they say, and we are going to get them from outside Europe. We say as Lero, just start and have a look at the talent which is wasted because you don't have a decent HR policy and a decent gender policy in your institution. So we certainly have been emphasizing this to a great extent. Research assessment, it's obviously very important that the research which is performed by our researchers must be evaluated in an excellent way. And the call which has been made earlier this afternoon for external reviewers coming from abroad is a very important element. Peer review is a very important element. We know that nowadays peer review becomes a bit more problematic if you see all those cases of plagiarism, of publications which are even falsified and which seemingly all get through the review process. It's clear that we will have to do something about peer review in the future, but it is clear that for the moment we don't have really an alternative for that. You see a paper that we did on doctoral degrees in 2010. It's really crucial in order to be sure that we have the right people on board or which can go to other institutions in order to pursue a research career, that they get a decent doctoral training. The doctoral training is not longer about making them even a bigger specialist than they already are in the topic on which they are working. For Lero and for the Lero universities, doctoral training is about making sure that people get a number of skills through the doctoral training which they can perform in an excellent way in the future, in their future career, be it in academia, be it in the private sector, be it in government, be it in industry, whatever. It's about skills that people need to have nowadays. And for that, we, for example, organize every year a doctoral summer school, for example, on entrepreneurship, for example, on communication, because we often see that we have top researchers on board, but if you ask them to communicate on a one-page document what they are doing on a daily basis, that a lot of them have problems to do that. And so it's a question also to make sure that they can talk with laymen about what they are doing and understand, as also was indicated already earlier this afternoon, the questions which are asked by the outside world about the work that they are doing, about the money that they are spending. Harvesting talent, strengthening research careers in Europe. I just will emphasize once again what the two previous speakers already said. Getting the best people, whatever the best then may be, but it's a question of making sure as a university that you can offer for those people which you really want in your institution to do the research, that you can offer them a certain perspective, that you can offer them a long-term career which is decently paid, not overpaid, but at least decently paid, and which is giving people a kind of research environment in which they feel good, in which they want to stay, to make sure that they perform in an outstanding way. So, and partner programs, for example, children programs, are things which are absolutely necessary if we want to convince a number of people to come to our universities. What are universities for? Another paper to which Yuri already referred earlier this afternoon. We as a group, we defend the position that universities are not, as a lot of politicians think nowadays, that we are a kind of grocery shops where you can find all kinds of things on the shelves which we need for today or at the latest for tomorrow. No, we are a kind of institutions where we look for the long-term perspective. And obviously we have to, we need to have a certain accountability towards the government which is funding us to a certain extent, but we don't want to give in to those short-term perspectives, coming up with solutions in a very pragmatic and a very shortcut way for a number of political issues which are out there. The future of the European research area, I will come back to that in a minute. Another important element in stimulating this excellence and in making sure that our researchers also go the whole way is this issue of innovation. We also want to have our researchers a much more entrepreneurial approach, that they are aware of the possibilities of knowledge transfer which are out there. We don't oblige them, of course, all to be entrepreneurs. That's also not the purpose, but at least they need a clue of what all of this is. You see that we have been doing a lot on social science and humanities, because we don't want to get into the corner where everything is, be it exact sciences, be it medical sciences. We think that for the solution of a lot of problems nowadays, I refer to the grand societal challenges of the EU, that social science and humanities play a very important role in solving those issues. And so it's clear that also for social sciences and humanities, we want to stimulate this excellent research, which often is perceived as being obvious for science and for medicine. We also want to have it in the social science and humanities. It's clear that academic freedom is also a very fundamental element in this approach of having good, excellent sciences. We must be sure that our researchers can talk about the things that they are doing in an uncontrolled way, no government interference, no institutional interference within the acceptable legal terms, I would say. So these are a number of elements, university rankings because this was already mentioned earlier also. Rankings as LERU, although all our universities are very often in the top 10, top 20, we oppose rankings, to be clear. We haven't seen any kind of ranking scheme yet around nowadays, which is in fact developed in a correct methodological way, which should lead to reliable results. And I know that all those ranking schemes are fine-tuned on a daily basis, on a yearly basis. The European Commission is developing U-Multi-Rank. We think that they are all aiming at representing something, at presenting something which is quite unmeasurable, and so although we perform very well in all those rankings, you will never see us supporting all those rankings. Now let me come back now at how we do this activity, this lobbying for excellent circumstances for developing excellent research at European level. And I would like to focus on a few elements here. If you look nowadays at the European scene, in fact there are three crucial elements, which by coincidence all should be finalized this week, or at the latest next week. Otherwise we will run into specific issues. First of all, which is not on the slide, but which is linked with the first one, is the multi-annual financial framework. One of the fundamental conditions for excellent research and for a good research environment is this funding, not only at national level, but also at European level. And Gunnar said money is not making the difference, but nonetheless it's a very important element. If you have no money, then it's of course very difficult to come up with that excellent research. And so what we need is long-term, stable financial environments. And obviously this has, due to the financial crisis, been a big problem over the last years at national level. And it is also a problem at European level. You know that the multi-annual framework, which is now to be rubber-stamped by the Parliament and the Council in the coming days, in the coming week, well, that we there are just below 1 trillion euro for the whole EU, for all policy fields for the period 2014-2020, that in this budget of almost 1 trillion euro, only 70 billion euro is available for research. Research based on a competitive attribution of money, because as you know, in the cohesion policy, there is also a budget of about 60 to 70 billion euro available for the period 2014-2020, but there the research money is not attributed on the basis of excellence, but is based, of course, on national priorities which are formulated in this so-called smart specialization strategy. So, but if you look at what is happening at European level, then we see that, well, let's express it in a positive way, that the amount of money has stayed more or less stable vis-à-vis the previous period under FP7, where we had 55 billion euro for research. Now we have 70, but Horizon 2020 is of course much broader than was FP7. So 70 billion is the absolute minimum, I would say. And middle-area we have been doing an enormous amount of work over the past 1.5 years to lobby national finance ministers. And if you see at the problems which we are having now, this week, you saw that yesterday Barroso announced that probably the Commission will have to stop with paying the bills mid-November, because of the dispute which is going on now between the institutions. Well, for 2014 we already started on a very bad footing, in a sense that there is this struggle about 426 million euro for the budget 2014, and which is going to be taken away from the research policy. So you see that at European and national level money is still an absolute problem. And all those national politicians which always pay lip service to fundamental research, to innovation, etc., etc., that's all very nice. But at the end of the day, when they all come back from those European meetings in Brussels or wherever they may take place, then very often we see the opposite, be it by themselves, be it by their colleagues on the finance department, where you see that there is still an enormous reluctance to do what they have to do, namely make money available for research. Let me go to the second element, Horizon 2020. For us universities, of course, the first pillar of Horizon 2020 is absolutely crucial, because there we have the tools to come to excellent research by having good people. The Marie Curie fellowships, which are in Pillar 1 of Horizon 2020, the ERC grants, which are in Pillar 1 of Horizon 2020, and we fought hard over the past 2 years to safeguard the budget of the ERC. So the budget of the ERC is going to stay stable over the following years compared to 2012, compared to 2013. Obviously it has increased enormously since the beginning of the ERC, but the picture that some people try to give us, namely that the ERC is now exploding and is getting much more money, is of course absolutely not correct. It's going to stay stable with a little bit of increase vis-à-vis 2012. But these are crucial elements to have the good people on board for excellent sciences. Now also in Pillar 1, and very often a bit more neglected, is the whole issue of research infrastructures. It's always a very important element that our researchers must have access to good research infrastructures. And today in Brussels, at this very same moment, my colleagues and collaborators are discussing with the European Commission, a first draft for a charter on access to research infrastructures in Europe. You know that we need enormous amounts of money for specific European global research infrastructures. Well, it's a question of putting money together by different countries and then sharing the access to those infrastructures for our own researchers. A third important element which you will find in this Pillar 1 of Horizon 2020 is the whole issue of open access. Open access to publications and open access to data. Of course, if we want to do good research, we need that open access. I'm not going to call upon you to join us in the battle with the big publishing houses, but I just want to indicate to you that this is absolutely crucial and that we need to do that. So that's why it is very good that under Horizon 2020, open access for all publications based on research funded by Horizon 2020 is now the basic principle. And that there is no preference for green open access versus gold open access. That's a very good approach which we have been supporting to a large extent. You see that what happened in the UK with the Finch report, where there was a kind of accelerated access to gold open access, that now a few weeks ago a parliamentary report came out which in fact indicated, I'm not going to say that the Finch report was crap, but at least that it was quite wrong in expressing this absolute priority for gold open access. And so for us universities, as long as the conditions financially and technically are not fulfilled to go for gold open access, we will oppose this accelerated approach towards gold open access. Of course, very important for us in Horizon 2020 and to come to this excellent research is of course the whole simplification exercise which has been introduced in Horizon 2020. The cutting of red tape, which we knew from FP7, FP6, etc., etc. I'm quite sure that with the modifications that we have been able to bring about towards Horizon 2020, that the administrative environment in which our people are going to work under Horizon 2020 is going to make a large difference. Only the fact that time sheeting is now not necessary anymore for those which are working exclusively under an Horizon 2020 project is absolutely important. I myself, a lawyer, have been in private practice for a number of years, and now I see that under FP7, FP6, etc., the time sheeting that our researchers had to do is even worse than in every worse law firm. So you can imagine that we do not support that. So these are a number of crucial elements under Horizon 2020 Pillar 1, which are absolutely necessary to have this good research environment in which our people can flourish. Now, this is linked to a third element that I want to mention from the European scene, and that's the whole issue of ERA. I don't know how familiar you are with the European research area, but it's that idea of creating a kind of, the Commission doesn't want to use the word anymore now, a kind of internal market for knowledge and innovation. Free circulation of knowledge, just like we have been establishing an internal market since 1992 with the free circulation of persons, capital, goods and services. Now, this era has been around since the early 2000s, and now suddenly those national politicians meeting in the European Council, be it the Competitiveness Council for the Research Ministers, be it as later this week the heads of states and government, which will meet on the 24th and the 25th again, and which will again emphasize the necessity of having a European research area. They have suddenly said 2 years ago that the era had to be realized by 2014. Obviously this is completely unrealistic, but you know that politicians work with target dates of which we know very often that they cannot be realized, but nonetheless it's good to stimulate everybody to do what has to be done. Now in ERA there are 5 key priorities which are also absolutely crucial for us, universities and our researchers, to come up with these excellent sciences. There is, first of all, priority one, namely we need excellent national research systems where money is distributed on the basis of what was mentioned already earlier this afternoon, on the basis of competition. And obviously we know that there are limits to that competition, but we still see nowadays that there are countries where an absolute majority of funding is distributed in a non-competitive way. The question is, can we still support that? The second era priority is that we need transnational collaboration, not only with regard to the creation and access to research infrastructures, but also with regard to the pooling of money. How long are we going to sustain the global competition in the field of research and innovation with 28 national research budgets and on top of that one European budget? Are we going to survive the battle with the States, with China, with Taiwan, with South Korea, with Australia, if we do not come at a certain moment to much more coordination, harmonization, pooling of money? If you look to the ERA progress report which the Commission published a few weeks ago, there they indicated, well, that the initiatives which are around nowadays by the research funders are nice, are interesting, but are absolutely not enough to realize the targets which have been put forward. The third ERA priority is all about research careers and doctoral training, where we absolutely have to make sure that we can offer the excellent research environment that our people need. And also there the ERA progress report has indicated that there is still some work to be done by the universities, by the research funders, by the governments. The fourth ERA priority is all about open access, about knowledge transfer. And the fifth priority, I now switched the last two on the basis of the document, and the last priority is gender. Gender is an absolute priority for the Commission, for a lot of institutions now in Europe. So these are a number of elements which are absolutely necessary to create the circumstances under which we can have excellent people doing excellent research. And I want to wrap up with going to the last slide. We, as LERU, we want to stimulate, we want to support those elements which are needed for an excellent research environment in which our people can flourish. We don't only want to do that stimulation, that support at European level, but we also want to do that at global level. So what we did a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we came together with 4 leading organizations of research-intensive universities, being LERU for Europe, be it the Association of American Universities of the United States, which is encompassing the 60 research-intensive universities in the States and 2 Canadian ones. We also came together with the C9, the group of leading 9 Chinese research-intensive universities, and the group of 8, being the 8 leading research-intensive universities in Australia. And together we signed the so-called Hefei statement, in which we call upon the different governments in the different parts of the world to come up with this necessary respect for research-intensive universities, which is going back to all the elements that we have been mentioning earlier this afternoon. And in this way we want to work complementary to what already has been created 1.5 years ago by the research funders, namely the Global Research Council, which is encompassing, I think, 50 or more important worldwide research funders who also want to come up with a number of global statements, initiatives, actions on a number of problems that all of us, be it universities, be it research funders, encounter worldwide. So in this European and international setting, we try to stimulate the environment, the conditions which are necessary for an environment in which we can do excellent research. Thank you very much.